fast-paced overview of the capstone course for Kentucky Technical University. And again, just an overview. If you're an actual student who's enrolled in the course, this should be a much more in-depth version, including templates for you and versions for you to be able to review. Your academic mentor is also the best source of information for you regarding your capstone project. This presentation is meant for people who are considering KTU or who are reviewing KTU or just want to understand KTU. So this is just an overview. But the capstone project, it's an optional program. Just want to point that out. And for students to complete an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, they need to meet 60 credit hours or 120 credit hours, respectively. Students can complete that number of credit hours to be able to complete the degree program without taking a capstone. But the capstone provides a really cool and unique opportunity for the student to be able to demonstrate the application of, in my head, I would try to do the objective exam courses. And when I say objective exam courses, I mean the certification, IT certification courses. So for instance, A+, Network Plus, Project Plus, Security Plus. There's a lot of certifications obviously worked within the program. But to be able to prove that you're not just a good test taker, doing the capstone is a good way to demonstrate your knowledge. And so that's why it's highly encouraged, rather than having to take 4 additional courses. And again, it allows you to demonstrate the knowledge that you've gained from previous courses and to apply them. Oftentimes, I think that you'll find that, and this, I guess, is the point that we're trying to do here, is you learn from the performance assessments. I've always learned better when I'm doing it. And that's what the capstone basically offers you, the opportunity to do something. Now, it's a high-stakes course. When I say high stakes, it's worth 12 credit hours. If you are trying to graduate with an associate's degree and you're searching for 60 hours, 12 credit hours is going to be a hefty chunk. It is a performance assessment, so as opposed to an objective exam. An objective exam is, just as the name kind of says, is an exam in which there's going to be an answer that is always right, and you're going to take that test, and we'll get a score completely from just what your answers are. Now, the performance assessment is more like literature, is what I would say. Like it's there's good ways of doing things, and then there's better ways of doing things. And so within the performance assessment, you'll be able to tackle a problem and demonstrate why it is that you chose to do things the way you did it. Now, it is to be completed at the end of your career at KTU. So in other words, you can't complete the capstone project in the middle of your studies. You'll need to complete all of your required courses and complete whatever electives you need to do. And then when you're at 12 credit hours left, then you can pick the capstone up. Now, the capstone also needs to clearly include at least 4 courses that you have previously taken. In other words, just because KTU offers the course doesn't mean that it is eligible to be in the capstone. You will have had to have taken the course. This is an application of what you know, not what courses that we offer. It needs to be a real-world application of technology, but it's self-defined. You get to put out what the parameters are. Now, it needs to deliver something that's testable. It also needs to be submitted in a detailed narrative report. So in other words, creating a server that does the best for whatever purpose or project that you've created, you can't just turn in the server, though, to us. You'll need to turn in a paper about the server that allows us to review it and question you. And when I say and question you, that's the final bullet there. The student defends decisions during an oral review by KTU faculty. So this is also important for us because we want to make sure that you didn't just pay somebody to do it, that this is actually your work. And the way that we can tell that it's your work is by asking you about it. Um, and it's not meant to be a gotcha session. There's nobody who's going to come and be bad cop, good cop kind of aspect. It's going to be a more of a friendly conversation where we just want to know how you came about this project. What were some of the challenges that you faced? What are things that you would do differently? Um, and so it's just a discussion. Now, with my tips and tricks here, what I would suggest is go on and Google or do a search for IT capstone projects. You'll find a lot because other schools obviously have capstone projects as well. Um, you do not want to use these as your work. That would be plagiarism. But you can use them for ideas. You can see how other people have executed them. Because since it's a high stakes course, it's nice to be able to see examples of what's worked and what hasn't. WGU, Western Governors University, has a large portfolio of IT capstone projects. Now, what's going to be within your capstone, that narrative report that you're going to write about? Well, you're going to define a problem that your capstone is going to solve. Generally, when you're defining that problem, you'll need to explain to us what is the current state, what is the status quo, what is the desired state. Define the problem. Tell us who the target audience is. And your target audience could be a client, it could be a company, it could be an organization, a demographic. But there's going to be somebody that you're trying to target with what your project is doing. Otherwise, if it's meant not to benefit people, then it's really not information technology. You should also research scenarios. So just because you know the best way to do something already is not going to be good enough. You can hold to what you know to be the best, okay? But you need to be able to defend that. And to be able to defend that, you need to know what some of the alternatives are. Then you should go on and go through and plan out what it is that you're going to do to address the problem. And then you'll enact it. Regarding enacting it, let's say that you're, for instance, putting out a VPN server that is going to tie two servers at different locations together in a secure environment, and you're going to have single sign-on for all of it. That's all great and dandy, but now who's going to pay for that? We want to prevent you from paying for it, or we want to prevent students from paying for it. The university has resources that we can help you out with. There's also, in addition to that, like if you're doing something on cloud computing, we can set you up with an AWS account that's going to allow you to have, like, I think they offer a year of free services. Google Cloud offers X number of dollars as a credit. So there's going to be ways for us to help you enact what it is that you're trying to do without you spending money or without the student spending money. Once you've enacted it, you're going to need to test it. Does it actually solve the problem? Now, if it doesn't solve the problem, that's not a problem necessarily for the capstone. The capstone is all about you applying technology. As long as you apply technology, whether or not you address the problem or not, that's okay. Life is full of failures, more often than not. Now, typically in the written report, you're going to discuss these elements that we've gone over, but you also you may want to use video. There may be some kind of medium that you feel is going to be the better one suited for your deliverable, and that's okay. Now, as we've already mentioned, there is an oral defense at the very end. It's just going to be 2-3 people that have reviewed your capstone. It'll be a video conference or a phone conference, nothing actually in person, but it will be a live event in which, again, you'll be discussing why you did what you did. Now, the time frame is rather important. The capstone must be able to be started and completed and reviewed within a 4-month term. So if you've already started the project and you have not enrolled in it, then that may be a problem for you because you need to start the capstone when the capstone actually starts. Which means that we cannot have any projects that span a year, for instance. It needs to be within 4 months, one term. The different colors on this graph are meant to symbolize 4 different months with blue, green, silver, and red. Red's a little bit bigger than the other ones, but that's just because it's the most important, right? It's the last month. Now, notice that you've got to do several different tasks. They're all out in green there. You have to begin the term, meet with your mentor. You need to be able to research what your project's going to do, plan it out, execute it, review it, submit it, and then defend it, all in 4 months. So don't turn it in 3 days before the term ends because you're not going to have enough time to defend it, really. Now, as we've already mentioned, the capstone needs to cover multiple, at least 4, courses that you've taken and noting how you've applied that knowledge. So there's just examples right here. And this is later on, there will be an example that I'm going to go through. But like for that example, the project would include hardware, which would be your A+ certification class. And that's going to be talking about what are the server resources, how much RAM do we need, how many CPUs, how do we prevent overloading the server, networking, infrastructure. Is there going to be routers involved? Is there going to be DHCP clients? Are we going to have a DNS server that's going to be involved in this? Will there be WAN and LAN? Those are all part of Networking Plus. And the Security Plus is securing the server. Anytime you put a server on the network, you've now allowed more access. More access means it's going to be able to find value with more people, but it also means that it's going to be more vulnerable. More than likely, your server is going to be a Linux-based operating system. If it's going to be cloud-based, then that would be the Cloud Plus certification class. If it's an implementation, for instance, of WordPress, then you've got the CMS class covered there. So I think it's really pretty easy to dream up a scenario and then figure out different classes that integrate with your capstone project. And you're also going to want to spend at least about a chapter on each of the courses to just put in one paragraph, this project covers these 4 courses, is not going to be sufficient. You're going to need to show us and tie it in. Now, how are you supposed to structure your capstone project? There's not necessarily a prescribed way that you have to do it, okay? I would say that you need to do it in a way that makes the most sense for your project. With that being said, anytime there's a gray area, it's nice to be able to have some kind of direction. So, direction, you're going to use APA formatting. There's a style guide for that. A typical capstone project is going to include a title page, table of contents. What is the current state, the desired state, the problem being solved? We're going to have a section on researching of topics that are related to your problem. What is your plan? When you're actually executing your plan, what are some notes that you might have taken? What are some lessons that you learned? Then we want to review and test out the solution and come up with a conclusion. Also, your work, whenever you're doing research, you're going to need to cite who it is that you've researched. That's just kind of a standard thing. Again, using APA formatting. Now, an example scenario is a client is seeking to gain greater control of their web content and is using GoDaddy shared hosting. And they want to improve their user experience and load times. So, some possible solutions to their problem or their current state versus their desired state is they could go with a cloud or a physical server. And there's options with AWS, DigitalOcean, or they could buy a physical server. There's different costs with different systems here. There's different support levels also offered. What are the networking choices that we're going to use? Are we going to have a load balancer? If it's a WordPress site, should we offload the MySQL database on its own server? There's a lot of questions here. and you should define those in your paper. Um, and again, you can see where I've tried to put in what the current state is, the desired state, what is the problem. When you were researching with our scenario that I've already outlined, these are some of the questions that you might ask yourself. What security should we add into this mixture? Should there be a VPN? Are there going to be any SSH concerns? Port 22, is it open for everyone? Port 22 is going to be open for everyone. Are you going to be building in your DigitalOcean VPS server and network using spaces with static content storage and their CDN? Maybe you decide that you want to use Cloudflare as your CDN and also as a security provider. What are some considerations that you need to keep in mind if you did that? And then obviously implementing it, you need to take some notes and some screenshots. Most of the time, things do not go as they are planned. And so this notes section is where you can document things where you have unintended results, and how do you work around those. And a paper that is submitted that goes over what we've discussed just now would cover, for instance, Network Plus class, the Server Plus course, the Project Plus course, the Security Plus course, all of which are certification courses. They're all objective exams. But within this capstone, you've been able to show that you can also implement what it is that you've been certified in. And remember, the capstone is equal to 4 courses, so think big. If you have any questions, contact your academic mentor or the Office of the Provost at 844-446-2588.